It's time for Living Your Purpose, a motivational and inspirational podcast with Peter and Joyce Nielsen.
Hey everybody, it's Peter Nielsen and welcome to Living Your Purpose podcast. I hope everyone is enjoying themselves during this holiday season. Believe it or not, we're less than 25 days away from a new year called 2025. And many of us are reflecting. Some of us are beating ourselves up for what didn't happen in 2024, the mistakes we may have made in 2024, the things we didn't accomplish, the obstacles that we faced. And I want this entire episode to hopefully pierce your heart, your soul, and for you to make a realistic commitment to not only believe again, but to accept change and to know that when change happens, it's a good thing. Many people dislike change immensely. They fight it. They delay their blessings. But I believe with all my heart that all the growth is during that season of change. And that season of change, many times for many of us, is in the valley. I always say that the best times of our lives are not on the mountaintops, which are far and few between, but the process to get there, the journey that takes us there, the things and lessons we learn that make us better people and a better version of ourselves. So as we race to end 2024, I want you to change your perspective. I want you to have a mind shift. I want you to truly know that everything that you've been through is setting you up for what's to come. A lot of the things, as I just mentioned, are tests. But in my opinion, a lot of them build character, integrity, reset your moral compass. Sometimes we need to undo some of the things to get back on the track on where God has destined us to be. And that's what I want to share with each of you today. It's been pretty heavy on my heart. I've traveled over last week to Kansas, had a beautiful time seeing some old friends, meeting some new friends at a speaking engagement that I did. And it gave me time, even, I went there by myself. My lovely wife, Joyce, she was watching our dogs. One of them is sleeping right on the floor over here. For people that are watching on YouTube or video, can see that. For people that are listening on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, or listening on social media, can't. But I had time to reflect. It's crazy weekend, wonderful, a blessed weekend. But sometimes when you have your alone time, you have a chance to really look at what you've been through, look at what you've accomplished, look at if you moved forward the way you wanted to. So if you do like this content, at the end of this segment, and if you've never, if you've never listened or watched any one of our podcasts and you enjoy it, just click the subscription below, whether it's on iTunes or Spotify or whether you're listening to it on Apple, social media, or YouTube. We appreciate your support, and we're really doing this for you. I believe that as we're racing towards 2025, and for many of us during this season, there's less daylight. For half of the country, it's colder, gets dark sooner. There's more parties, more alcohol, which is a natural depressant. There's more conflict with families that come together for tradition. That for many of us, we don't want to see our family members. We would rather have root canal. But we go through this process, and instead of it being like Groundhog's Day, where you're doing the same thing every year over and over, you can possibly get out of your comfort zone and grow. What a concept. And in saying that, going back to just square one, we were all born with greatness. We're all born, most of us were all born even keel. Some of us have physical challenges like I do with Crohn's disease. There's no perfect human being. But we're born with a will and a soul and a heart and the intellect with a brain, the strength. But yet, many of us veer into the weeds, and in my opinion, some of the most wonderful people fail over and over again. And a lot of times people may even question, like, why is that happening? And I believe that a lot of times our past circumstances, whether it's physical abuse, a divorce, a bankruptcy, a tragedy, a loss of a family member, all cause us to build this wall around us. And sometimes, for some of us, we stay paralyzed in that moment of trauma, and we never let it go. And in that moment of trauma, whether you're 14 or 18 or 25 or 30, and now you're 60 or 70 or 50, you're still psychologically there. And whether it was, when I was growing up, my father was an alcoholic, and there was a lot of physical abuse with all of us, a lot of verbal abuse, mental abuse. That can wear on anyone. And if you get paralyzed in that moment, then you become that character. You become that victim. You reread, rewrite that same book, that same chapter over and over again. That becomes your identity, even though it's a negative thing. Some people use that as a positive thing, as part of their story, and they could use it as rocket fuel. And that's when it turns into a positive, because you're not defined by your past circumstances. It's just a reference point on things that you don't want to happen again. I've had 2 near-death experiences with Crohn's disease. I do come from an abusive childhood. I was very poor. I did go through a divorce that tried to emotionally and financially, psychologically cripple me. And I had a choice. I truly had a choice to either move forward or to not. And I have 5 books that are published, and my most recent manuscript that will turn into my next book is called The Invisible Obstacles. And some of the things that I believe are the culprits to keep people paralyzed in that trauma stage. And they could still wear a wonderful, expensive suit. They could still drive a nice car. You can still get married, have kids, be a great mother. But on the inside, emotionally and spiritually, you're crippled and you're paralyzed. I believe some of these invisible obstacles are forgiveness, trust, fear, and the ability to love again after being betrayed or hurt. And the first one, to me, is monumental, because I had a father who I love more than the oxygen that I was breathing, but yet he betrayed our family with things that he shouldn't have done for long times. And then he physically and verbally abused us when he turned into a raging alcoholic. My dad died at 49 years young, and I was angry. Didn't realize how angry I was. And now I do understand decades later on why people get into gangs. I actually got into a group of guys who were all broken. I mean, in many ways, all of us are broken, but we need to take ownership of that and then walk forward and heal. But at the age of 17 and 18 and 19, I was angry, and I got more fulfillment than I thought, camaraderie and love and commonalities with some of these guys, that some of them were bad to the core. But I related to a lot of them, and we got into a lot of fights, and I felt like I was, it's crazy to say, but enjoying that, because it was a circuit breaker, but a negative one. Until I relinquished, my dad died, I never really got a chance to have some major heart-to-hearts. The beautiful thing is that on the 48th hour before he died, he did accept Jesus into his life. So I can say this, which is so important as part of my testimony, is that not only do I forgive and I've relinquished that emotional debt, but I also am super excited in my belief system that when I take my last breath and go home, then I'm going to see a new creation in Christ in my dad. So, kudos to God. But on the forgiveness, it took me, a good 15 years to come to that decision of being exhausted on all fronts, to relinquish that emotional debt, to know that I'll never get to hug my dad or him to say he's sorry to each and every one of us, and that he loves us. And so forgiveness is a big factor on your ability in any relationship, business, personal. If you go to church, if you know every scripture, if you do good at work, but you're not forgiving, how can you expect God to forgive you on the things that you're doing? So forgiveness, in my opinion, I have one of my last recent books is Soul Strength, and I have a whole chapter on forgiveness, and it's so important. Another one is trust. If you have trust, you have everything in a business relationship or a personal relationship. If you don't have trust, you have nothing in a business relationship or a personal relationship. No matter how much you love that person, no matter how much money you're making in business, if you can't trust that party or that individual, then, we all get older and we run out of runway, and it's a terrible thing to be sleeping with one eye open. There's not enough runway for me to do that. Trust is earned, but also after a long period of time. I mean, you can forgive someone, and I've forgiven many people, but I can't forget, and I may choose not to be in that relationship anymore. And that has happened in my life. I fired certain people from my life because they were living a different lifestyle. I didn't trust them. I still could pray for them. I still could have loving feelings for them. But I don't need to have them in my inner circle, in my, in my space, which is sacred to me. In my opinion, at the end of the day, the most valuable thing that we could ever have is love. Not only is it biblical, but I don't care what your faith is, what your gender is, how old you are, what color you are, where you live. At the end of the day, everyone wants to love and be loved. So in saying that, it's like if someone gets betrayed, hurt, cheated on, abused to, there's a period of healing, even if you never see that person again, even if you forgive that person and you don't go back to that relationship, you still need your alone time with God and self to evaluate why that happened, learn from it, move forward in it, and say, what do I like and what do I dislike about that last relationship, and learn more about self. But at the end of the day, everyone wants to share their heart, to be themselves, and to have someone to love. I don't care how jaded you are, how desensitized you are, if you really are true to self, to yourself. It's important to be loved. It's important to give love. The other thing that I believe is an invisible obstacle is fear. You know, fear is not a spirit of God if you're a believer. And 80% of the things that most people are fearful for never come to fruition, never happen. So my question to you is, what if you didn't have that fear? What would you be doing? What would have you tried? What have you done that you haven't? So, you know, I've said this on stage, you know, fear is like praying to the wrong God, the devil, for everything that you never wanted. And everything that you do want is on that other side, is over the horizon of fear. So you can use fear. I mean, Mike Tyson, who's been through a horrific life, been successful in boxing, he always says that he likes fear because it basically, he fights against it. His adrenaline, his cortisol, his dopamine is at its peak when he's fearful of losing something, and then he's fighting against that to win. I get it, but it's such a beautiful life if you don't live in fear. So that is very, very important to understand. And then I think that as we go into 2025, so many people ask the wrong question. They'll ask me, Peter, you know, how do I lose weight? How do I become more successful in business? How do I have a great marriage? I've counseled thousands, tens upon thousands of people through the last 30 years. And I think that a lot of people, with all due respect, are asking the wrong question. You could go on, you know, AI or Google anything on how, and you'll find it in milliseconds. But I think that the question, instead of how do I, is why do I want to? Why do I want to lose weight? Why is it important to do X, Y, Z in this marriage? Why do I want a successful marriage? Why do I want to stop smoking? Why do I want to lose weight? Why do I want to enrich my life with a better career? When you find your reasons why, your blinders come off and your life opens up. And that's what my hope and my prayer is to each and every one of you, is that your reasons why need to be greater than any fear, than any failure. Your reasons why need to get you up in the morning. It needs to motivate you. It needs to inspire you. It needs to be your rocket fuel on why you're doing what you're doing. So many people will say, well, I have evaluated that 10 years ago and I found out what my reasons why are. Well, I'm going to tell you something. My reasons why 10 years ago are totally, they may have been accomplished, totally different. They're as far as the east is to the west if you're growing, if you're growing, your reasons why are going to constantly change every year or every few years. So as we end 2024, I have a little homework for each and every one of you. Document it, whiteboard it, dream board it. What are your reasons why for 2025? And that will really open up a lot of things. The other thing that I want to give as kind of an application for 2025 is there's nothing more powerful than a changed mind. If you have a mind shift, if you're thinking the same way every day, you're going to be doing the same thing every day. You're going to be expecting certain things. You're going to be going around the same mountain 400 times. And it's going to be like you're watching that movie, Groundhog. You get up the same day, it's snowing, you're looking at the watch, you're going to work, you're coming home, you're going to sleep. You get up the next morning, the same song's on the radio. You're going through the motions, but you're not living it. You're not getting out of your comfort zone. You don't have reasons why. So I believe that what you think this morning, what your mind is thinking this morning is how you live out this afternoon and this evening. So if you have a mind shift, you're going to see things different. A lot of times a person that really, in my opinion, needs a mind shift is a person that asks everybody and their brother for what they're doing, is it a good idea? It's great to have counsel, but a lot of times we're looking for edification or yes people that are going to tell us what we want to hear. What I'm saying to you is if you have a mind shift, you already know in your soul, from whatever your belief system is, what already you're supposed to do. But you're procrastinating or you're second guessing or thinking, and you're asking a gazillion people if what you're going to do is the right thing to do. But if God didn't put it in their heart, how the hell are they going to know, or why would you listen to them on what their thought process is? Again, let me reiterate, I have good counsel. So if I'm going to make a decision, I'll talk to my pastor, I'll talk to my wife, I'll talk to a dear friend, and I'll evaluate that. But if you start making the rounds and saying the same thing to dozens of people and you're not moving forward, you're stuck, you're paralyzed in that moment, you're never going to accomplish it. If you make that mind shift and you know already what you're supposed to do from your gut, from your belly, from your spirit, then what's going to end up happening is everything you've ever wanted, you're going to expedite, and you already have been doing it instead of waiting for it to happen. So a mind shift is one of the most valuable changes you could ever make in your mind. The other thing that is something that I feel is a great application, a little homework, is for you to believe again. You become what you believe. So what you believe, you embody. What you embody, you truly become. I mean, there's study after study. I mean, there was a long time story that I read, and I ended up seeing a video on somebody that was a musician, and they basically went into a coma for 3/4 of a year. And they woke up, they didn't know their wife, they didn't know anybody. But they kept on hearing that they were great at this instrument. And it was a piano. And my point is that once that person truly embodied and believed that they can be an expert at that, they started to relearn that very quickly. Once they did, they became that. So it's something for you to think about as we're going into 2025. Believe again. It's one of the most important things, and I think something that comes, in the same bucket as finding your reasons why, believing again, is the vision. You know, I've won 50 bodybuilding titles, as I mentioned, Mr. America, Mr. Universe, Mr. World, Teenage America. If I didn't see myself winning, and believe it or not, some of those trophies are right here, and here is the World Cup, and here, I'm showing people that have video, this is the Mr. America, and you can see some pictures over here of me winning. If I didn't have a vision of it, there's no way this would have happened. I remember after winning the Mr. America, I was going to Central America to win the Mr. Universe, to compete in it. There was 88 other countries. And if I didn't believe that I had a chance on winning, I would have never got on that plane in Kennedy Airport in New York. Never. So I also believed, and I spoke, and I saw myself healthy when I was in the hospital for 2.5 months and went from 135 pounds down to 86 pounds. I realized that I could get healthy no matter what the doctor said. The doctor said I wouldn't live past 20. So the vision of me being hopeful and seeing myself healthy motivated me to get out of the pity party and to move forward. So you need to see it. And then if you remember anything on this podcast today, is that you have to speak it. Words create life or death. You need to manifest the love you want. You need to manifest the career you want. And you need to manifest your happiness. Happiness is a choice, not a chance. So what you say, good or bad, is going to prophesize your tomorrow. So if you say, my marriage sucks, if you say, I'll never lose weight, and if you say, I can't break the addiction of alcohol, you're going to be a fat, divorced drunk. And I'm saying that from a source of love. I'm not ridiculing anybody. I want everybody to get help, but you need to speak life into yourself. No one else is going to eat for you. No one else is going to train for you. You need to speak life into yourself. If you have nothing good to say about someone else or about yourself, shut this little circle called your mouth. Because I'm telling you, it's a slippery slope. If you say, I'm going to get that career I want, I'm going to get healed, I'm going to find the soulmate of my life, I'm going to have the most amazing marriage, I'm going to be the most financially fit in 2025, that's what you're walking into. If you start talking death into your relationship or your career or your children, that is where it's going to go. It's not rocket science. So I end with this. As we're going into and closing out 2024 and going into 2025, you need to not have any more excuses. When I make a mistake, the first thing that I say to myself is, okay, how did this happen? 9.99% of the times, it's because of the choices that I made. So I don't blame anybody, even if somebody was a schmo, even if someone ripped me off, even if someone betrayed me. I already knew beforehand, but still stayed in it. No excuses. Learn from it, get over it, get out of it, and move forward from it. That is my best advice when we're just racing into a new year. And you need to make a commitment to accept change. Change is inevitable. If you're not changing, you're not growing. If you're not growing, what do I always say? You're dead on arrival. You just don't know it yet. So embrace the change, because the blessings that God has given even me 10 years ago are not the same that he wants for me today. A lot of times our goodness of how good we are buries God's greatness for us because we want to stay in that comfort zone. And what did I say in the beginning? Most people don't like change. So accept, be committed to change in 2025. I leave with this, and I just wrote this not even 5 days ago. I woke up at about 2:15 in the morning. I got on my iPhone like I always do, and I feel like God was giving me a word, and I just wrote it on my notes. And then I actually, on stage on this past Saturday, I spoke it. And what I said and what I want to leave with you, to each and every one of you, is to be proud. For each and every one of you to be proud of how well you've handled this past year. Many of us, a lot of us, have been through the storms of a lifetime. And you have fought silent battles that only you and God knows. And there's many times that you've wiped away your own tears. And yet, you've gotten up and you've continued to move forward on your own. Even when people have left you, even when people have betrayed you, even when you got a pink slip and you no longer are wanted at a job that you were doing for 20 years or so. What I say to each and every one of you, celebrate your strength that you had in 2024. And then, and only then, put your shoulders back, your chest out, walk forward. I admire so much the people that have been through crazy storms, that have been in the middle of the ocean and they couldn't see land. But yet, with God's help, in my opinion, they've made it through. They've gotten off of the floor. They wiped the tears away. And they were able to smile again, able to love again, able to truly do what God has destined them to do again. That's what I want for you. So until next week, I hope that you have an amazing few days. And the reason why I named this podcast with the word purpose in it is that we were born with a purpose to live a purposeful life. So my hope, my prayer, my plead to each and every one of you, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Get off of your pity party. Get off of the sidelines. Get back in the game. You deserve it. Until next week, I'm Peter Nielsen with Living Your Purpose podcast. God bless each and every one of you. Bye.